Welcome back to Picks with Phony Soprano. Here today, we'll go over week six picks and then the week seven picks that I have in store for you. Fortunately, another terrible week versus the spread. Having a lot of trouble getting a feel for the league this year. 6-9 versus the spread and 10-5 straight up. So I took the Eagles both ways. Really, I should have taken the Giants to cover in this game. That was probably the better option, obviously, considering the fact that they outright won. Eagles on a little bit of a skid here. Another putrid game in London, I believe. Jets, Broncos. Broncos winning, Jets covering the 6.5. Cardinals covering versus the Colts in Indianapolis. 7.5 points, a little too much for the Colts. Chargers beating the Dolphins, no surprise there. I was kind of surprised at how low the spread was, so I thought for me it was a no-brainer that the Chargers would cover 3.5. I thought they were a better team. I think they're a better team, absolutely, despite the fact that they're absolutely decimated with injuries right now. So I was a little surprised they didn't cover. Patriots, Pats beating the Saints. Seems like the Pats are doing pretty well so far this season. I'd like to see them continue. Opportunity this coming week to win a third road game in a row, which has never happened in Patriots history in the regular season. So it'll be interesting to see how they play in the return to Tennessee with, of course, the first time since Mike Vrabel's departure. The Browns didn't cover versus the Steelers. Browns defense still looked very good, but Steelers pulling away there. Browns offense having a little bit of trouble. Dylan Gabriel unable to find a rhythm versus a very, very stout and seasoned Steelers defense. Took the Cowboys to beat the Panthers. I don't know how many times I have to repeat this point. Two bad teams, you should take the home team. So the Panthers winning there. I didn't think that the Panthers offense would be able to keep up with the Cowboys offense, despite the fact that both defenses really kind of stink. So I thought that the Cowboys would be able to end up winning here. Jaguars losing to the Seahawks, of course, not covering as well. Really defensive battle. Seahawks defense really impressing me overall. So that was an impressive win by the Seahawks, and I think the Jaguars are still a very good team, but no surprise really to see that the Seahawks ended up winning and covering. I thought that this was an absolute toss-up and thought it'd be a great game. I thought there'd be a little more scoring, but I digress. Rams getting off to a slow start versus the Ravens and then pulling ahead, end up beating the Ravens. Not a great game. Rams covered the 7.5 points. I had the Titans covering versus the Raiders because I truly don't believe in the Raiders, but I guess I should just believe in the Titans that much less. Raiders end up getting the win. Packers by 14.5. I should have known that was a little too many points for them to cover considering how inconsistent they've been. Even though they're at home, even though Joe Flacco was coming in, making his first start on a short week for Cincinnati, and by short week, I mean in terms of his preparation time and ability to get acclimated to the playbook and the offense. And they looked decent in the second half, honestly. So Packers didn't cover, but they won. So if you pick them in your survivor pool, like I recommended here, then you'd be good. Buccaneers beating and covering the 49ers. No surprise there. 49ers have a bunch of injuries. Buccaneers have a bunch of injuries. Baker Mayfield, my opinion, front runner for MVP. I'm sure that comes to nobody's surprise. He's playing absolutely lights out so far this season, despite the fact that they have a lot of injuries, especially with skill positions. So we'll see. They might get Mike Evans back this week, probably losing Egbuka this week. It'll be interesting, that's for sure. But hopefully they can get their team together by the time it's ready to roll into the postseason because I think that the Bucs will be a force to be reckoned with, especially if Baker Mayfield continues to roll on the way he has so far. Lions Chiefs. pick the Lions both ways. I truly think the Lions are a better team. Chiefs winning at home. Arrowhead, of course, a tough spot to play. No penalties called on the Chiefs in this game. I know everyone probably saw the study out of University of Texas, San Antonio, saying that disproportionately over the last 10 years, the subjective penalties have shown statistical significance in terms of favoring the Chiefs. And it was quite interesting if you look at, of course, the touchdown that got reversed with the Jared Goff pass. Jared Goff literally on the bench, and that call getting reversed is just wild to me. Plenty of holding calls missed if you actually look back at the tape. So interesting to see here. The Chiefs ended up, winning. Um, Bills Falcons. I expected the Bills to come out with a little more fire, especially after losing to New England. Falcons played a good game. Bijan, of course, doing Bijan things. He's probably the best back in the league in terms of his reception ability and then his ability to rush the football as well. Absolutely a dynamic playmaker. Falcons have a ton of talent. We'll see how Michael Penix improves throughout the season. Hopefully, through the second half of the season, we see him improve a little more. And then at that point, I think that the Falcons will be a force to be reckoned with because they are a truly talented team. They just honestly haven't put it together yet. And this could be a confidence turning point for their season. We'll see. Bears Commanders. Bears win. Bears cover. Of course, Washington 4.5 point favorite in Washington. So giving them the benefit of the doubt. Bears winning by the same score they won by the week before, which is kind of interesting. To me, it wasn't too surprising that the Bears won. I think that the Commanders' defense has been wretchedly bad, and I think that the Bears had a little momentum going into the bye. So it's not surprising to me, given that Washington's been a little inconsistent, and I think we're starting to see the Bears hit a little bit of a hotter streak going into week 7. So overall, 44-49 versus the spread this year. Yikes. But 57, 35, and 1 straight up. So not bad straight up. So going into this week, tonight we have Steelers Bengals in the Unk Bowl, one of the oldest matchups ever for starting quarterbacks in the entire league. Spread Pittsburgh 4.5 in Cincinnati. Cincinnati wearing the whiteout uniforms. I think that Cincinnati really started to turn it on at the end of last game versus the Packers in the second half. Overall, I think with the extra week here or the full week of preparation, the full week of actually building chemistry with the talent that the Bengals have, I think Joe Flacco can still sling it around the yard. And I think that the Bengals have legit talent at the skill positions, of course, with Chase and Higgins receiving the ball. And the Steelers, I still don't believe in the Steelers. I know everyone gets on me for that. They only have one loss, which is to the Seahawks in Pittsburgh earlier this year, I believe in week 2. But realistically, the Steelers, they've come out lucky quite a few times. They barely beat the Jets. The Patriots gave them 5 turnovers. That's 2. What else has happened for them? I'm trying to remember. The Steelers beating the Vikings in foreign territory. Carson Wentz still threw for 350 yards in that game. And then week 5, they had a bye. And then last week, they played a rookie quarterback making his second start and dominated because their defense is very solid. So sorry that I had to look that up. I should have known that off the top of my head. Either way, my point being is the Steelers really are paper tigers, and we'll see them at 9-8 by the end of the season, like they always are. Death taxes, Steelers going 500 or slightly above. That's just how it works in the universe that we exist in with Mike Tomlin. So, with that being said, I do expect divisional game at home for the Bengals, really needing some sort of a jump start and having a good half versus a very solid Packers defense. maybe that's underperforming a little bit at the moment. I'm going to take the Bengals to cover, but I'm going to take the Steelers to win. Rams Jaguars Sunday at 9:30, the Jaguars' second home stadium in London. Not really, obviously, but that's their secondary home fandom. Rams without Puka Nacua, so the fact that they're favored is a little interesting to me. I think that the Jags probably have a little bit of a salty taste in their mouth after kind of getting bullied a little bit by the Seahawks defense. And I think that the Rams have a great defense. I think the Rams probably are a better team, but I think just due to injuries, no Puka Nacua, I'm gonna have to take the Jaguars to cover and the Jaguars to get the upset. Saints Bears. Chicago by 4.5 in Soldier Field, which is a very interesting spread. I think that a lot of the spreads this week are pretty tough. They're very reasonable. I saw a lot of fight out of the Saints so far this season, and I know that I've been really dogging them as one of the worst teams in the league, which I think from an overall talent perspective, if you look at a 53-man roster, that probably is the case. But I think that they have plenty of fight. I mean, Spencer Rattler only has one interception so far this year. I mean, maybe he's not putting the ball in danger enough, but then you go ahead and look at the game versus the Patriots, and the first play, he throws an absolute bomb over the top of Kyle Duggar's head and has a massive completion. First play of the game. So I think that they're scrappy, and I think that the Bears, yeah, they might be getting a little hotter. We'll see, but I think that the Saints have some top end talent, and I think that they'll be competitive in this game versus Chicago. Chicago coming off, of course, the win versus Washington, and I think that they'll be, riding a little high, especially Caleb in his head. Oh, I beat Jaden, and Jaden was Rookie of the Year, and all this stuff. I feel like sometimes from the psychological component, Caleb could be a little bit better. So and everyone makes fun of him because he cries and paints his nails and all this other stuff. And I can totally understand why. And I don't think he's truly a leader. We'll see. I think that the Bears are a better team for sure. So I'm going to take the Bears to win, and I'm actually going to take the Saints to cover because I think that they've earned it. I think that they've showed a lot of fight, and I'm still waiting on the Bears to really kind of turn that corner and start to be the team that they think they are and that on paper really that they should be. So until that they start really taking advantage of that and only scoring low 20s points versus Washington's defense is kind of putrid considering how terrible they've been. Browns Fins. Dillon Gabriel making his third start. Dolphins in absolute disarray. The Tua comments, of course, this week. I think for me in Cleveland, I think that just the disorganization and the absolute plummet that has happened for the free fall that has happened for the Dolphins this season has been wild to watch. I don't think anyone anticipated them being as disgruntled or as bad as they've been, and frankly, they look terrible. Their only win against the winless Jets. And I think the Browns defense is for real. And I think that they're going to absolutely smack the Dolphins in the mouth from a defensive standpoint. And I expect it to be a lower scoring game. I don't think the Dolphins have a great defense, but we'll see what Dillon Gabriel is able to do. I think that Cleveland actually gets the win this week, and I think Dillon Gabriel gets his first win as a starter at home. 2.5 point spread. I'm going to give it to the Browns because I really think that the Dolphins' free fall has yet to stop. Patriots Titans, Pats by 6.5. This should be your survivor pool pick of the week, more than likely. Could also take the Chiefs versus the Raiders. That would be another good pick for this week in particular. If you haven't used the Chiefs yet or the Patriots, I would say either one of them, it's a good time to use them. Going to the Patriots and Titans, though, of course, following the firing of Brian Callahan, their head coach. The Patriots coming off another win versus the Saints. The Bills the week before, 4-2 Drake May, looking to be potentially an MVP conversation. I think it's certainly worthy of putting him in the top five conversationally because the Patriots are doing so well. Winning record, realistically, they won their toughest game, which potentially was Buffalo in Buffalo, and they won that. And I think a lot of the Patriots' success, and if you look at their offense most of the time, in terms of how successful they've been in comparison to last year or the year before, of course, it's the scheme and everything. Josh McDaniels doing everything he can, but scheme only goes so far. You have to have the players out on the field actually making the plays and really kind of driving that change and upward trajectory for the team. And I think Drake May's really put the Patriots offense on his back, and he's been one of the best quarterbacks in the league this year. He is statistically the best deep ball passer. He's statistically the best quarterback on third and fourth down. And if you watch the tape, he still has those wow plays that he had, and that's why you drafted him, was those wow plays, and you can really see the potential. And he's not making nearly as many mistakes. He only has three turnovers on the year right now, so and plenty of touchdowns. So I think that the Patriots win. I think that the Patriots cover. I don't expect the Titans to necessarily put up too much of a fight. I think Mike Vrabel and the other Tennessee guys have kind of a sour taste in their mouth with how it's gone since how about that departure. And since Mike Vrabel's left the Titans, uh, they only have 4 wins, which is how many wins that the Patriots have already this season. So it's including last season and this season. So I think that the Titans are probably the worst team in the league. So I'm gonna say that the Pats cover. I think that the Pats cover in this game, and I don't think it's gonna be particularly close. I think that people are a little too hesitant or a little hesitant still about the Patriots and what they're able to do. And I think that's why it's 6.5 points. Granted, you're on the road, in Tennessee. So we'll see what happens, but I definitely have the Patriots covering and winning here. Raiders, Chiefs, Kansas City by 12.5 in Kansas City. I think that the fact that the Chiefs won by 12 last week versus the Lions was astounding to me. So to say that they can't win by 13 versus a Raiders team that's one of the worst in the league, in addition to the fact that they get Rashee Rice back, I think that the Lions Chiefs should have absolutely been a closer game. Don't get me wrong. And I think that it's a divisional game, of course, that can be close. However, I think that the Chiefs cover. This is a lofty spread for sure. A lofty spread. And like I said, if you're not taking the Patriots for your survivor pool this week, I think it's a good opportunity to take the Chiefs because it's really difficult to see a scenario where they lose to the Raiders at home. And I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they cover. Their offense got a lot better when they got Xavier Worthy back, and now they have Rashee Rice back as well. So I think that they have the ability to cover versus the Raiders and win in double digits fashion, of course. Eagles, Vikings, Philadelphia by 1.5. How the mighty have fallen. Losing 2 weeks in a row, you lose to the Giants in New York, slash actually New Jersey, and you lose to the Broncos at home. Really just stinking it up for 5 straight quarters. Vikings not doing too bad. They're doing all right. I mean, this game, the Eagles are certainly the more talented team. They don't have the injury issues like the Vikings do. So to me, it's a little puzzling. I think that even though that the Eagles have had two losses where they haven't necessarily looked the best for 5 straight quarters. Maybe they're hitting a little bit of a slump. I just can't see them losing for a third week in a row. I'm sorry. This is the defending Super Bowl champs as much as it, sorry, I just threw up in my mouth a little bit. As much as it pains me to say that about them, I think that the Eagles, I think that they cover and win. I mean, Minnesota's a tough spot to play, tenacious defense. I think JJ McCarthy's still questionable. If it doesn't matter if it's him or Carson Wentz, honestly. The Eagles defense is pretty solid and aggressive, and I think it'll be a difficult time. Granted, they have Addison, they have Jefferson. I don't think they have Aaron Jones back. I think that's next week. Next week they get Aaron Jones back. Jordan Mason's been pretty solid despite that, and a lot of bad football being played. But I'm going to take the Eagles both ways. I think that's just the safer pick than picking the Vikings to have the upset. But Vikings are home, so anything can happen. Winless Jets hosting the 3-3 Panthers. Panthers by 1.5. This one's interesting. I've certainly gone back and forth on it a couple times because, of course, the Panthers they've been a little frisky. They've played pretty well, especially following the absolute decimation that happened in up here in New England. And the Jets are winless. I mean, but they're not going to go defeated. Let's let's be real. The Jets got to win a game at some point. So I know I get burned by taking the Jets every week. However, I'm going to say that the Jets actually get their first win this week, and it's going to be versus the Panthers. We'll see how that plays out. Could Panthers should win. They should, but I think, like we talked about, and I'm going to stick to it, as you see, two bad teams, I'm taking the home team. Browns Dolphins, two bad teams. I'm taking the home team. I'm finally obliging to my own rules. And hopefully it actually pans out this week. But I think the Jets get their first win this week. Honestly, Justin Fields hasn't thrown a pick yet. I think that he's been relatively careful with the football. And I don't know if they have Garrett Wilson. I think he's questionable and or out. And Jets just looking tough. They're not playing up to their talent level. I think that they probably are a more talented team than the Panthers, but they are seriously underperforming. But I think that the bleeding stops here and they get their first win of the season. Broncos Giants. Of course, the Broncos at home in Denver. 4:05 starting that slot. The 4 o'clock games, Denver by 7.5, I think is an interesting proposition because I don't have a whole lot of faith in the Broncos offense to really score a substantial amount of points. I think Bo Nix is an absolute game manager, and I think they've been doing fine. They haven't been doing great on offense. Their defense, one of the best in the league for sure. I think Denver is an incredibly difficult place to play. It has been historically for many, many years, back to the Elway days. Of course, then you got Peyton being there. Certainly a tough place to play at Mile High. So for sure, I think the Broncos are a better team. I think that the Broncos win this game. That being said, though, I think that the Giants maybe keep it close. And by close, I mean within a touchdown. I think 7.5 points is a little generous for how the Broncos offense has been performing. So I'm going to take the Giants to cover, and I'll take the Broncos to win. Colts Chargers by 1.5 at home, 4:05 in Los Angeles. This one's an interesting one to me. I was kind of a little surprised that the line wasn't in favor of Indianapolis, given that they have a better record. Granted, the Chargers are home. The Chargers are absolutely stricken with injuries. Again, probably one of the most injury-ridden teams so far this season. The Colts still doing, still winning. I mean, Jonathan Taylor probably an MVP conversation, I think. I mean, they're 5-1 versus a 4-2 team. This will be a very good game. I think that just because of the injuries that the Chargers have, I think that the Colts should win this game on the road. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they cover and they win. But if it was straight up, if there was no injuries involved, I would 100% take the Chargers. I would. I think that the Chargers are overall a better team, especially when they're healthy. But not this weekend. Commanders, Cowboys. Commanders, of course, coming off the loss and versus the Bears, and the Cowboys coming off the loss versus the Panthers in Carolina. Two bad teams. What are we going to do? We're not going to take Washington. I think that this is going to be an absolute shootout. It's going to be a slugfest, and I would hammer the over on this game if I was a gambling man, because both of these defenses have been some of the worst defenses in the league so far this year. Even though Bobby Wagner is still doing his thing, I think he's second in tackles in the league, which is insane at, you know, 3,000 years old at this point. I mean, future first ballot Hall of Famer for sure. Despite that, Washington's defense has been horrific, and the Cowboys' defense has probably been even worse. So I think it'll be a shootout. And with that said, I'm going to take the Cowboys. Too bad. I don't think that Washington really is that bad. And I also don't think Dallas is that bad. I just think that both of their defenses have been bad. Their defenses have been terrible. And Washington has been underperforming on the offensive side of the ball, if you ask me a little bit. And I think we'll see kind of what happens, but I expect it to be a shootout. I think it's going to be a very high scoring game. I think the Cowboys take the cake there. CeeDee Lamb coming back this week, I think is a huge boost for the Cowboys. So I expect them to win at home this week. Packers Cardinals, 425 in Arizona, Green Bay by 6.5. This one is another tough one. I think that the Cardinals have underperformed. I think that they've stumbled over themselves big time. They don't have the ability to finish the game. However, the Packers are wildly inconsistent and they've really had a tough time covering this season. I mean, they allowed a backdoor cover for the Bengals, who are one of the worst teams in the league right now, especially without Joey Burrow and some of their other players that are injured. So I certainly think that this is an interesting line. Do I think that the Packers win by a touchdown in Arizona? This is a tough one. Oh God, I keep going back and forth on this in my head right now because the Cardinals have been so bad. I mean, they threw the game against the Titans. They threw it. I'm going to say the Cardinals cover and the Packers win. Final verdict. Actually, just kidding. I'll give the Packers one more week to actually do something of relevance, which includes not tying the Cowboys and actually covering a game. So we'll see. I'll probably get burned on it, but see. We'll see, that's for sure. Falcons in San Francisco Sunday at 8:20. San Francisco minus 2.5. 49ers playing good football, very banged up. Mac Jones and Purdy both banged up. I think Mac Jones is supposed to go. No Kittle, no Fred Warner, no Nick Bosa. Ricky Pearsall coming back. Certainly a tough pick here because I think the Falcons, in classic Atlanta fashion, would come out and look terrible in this game, and everyone will be fooled, and the 49ers will roll them. And that's just kind of what's happened with the Falcons. And with that being said, I mean, I really think that the 49ers probably both of these teams are about even talent-wise if they were fully healthy. So Falcons going on the road certainly is a tough ask to go and win in San Francisco, but I'm going to take the Falcons for the upset because in my mind, glass half full, I think maybe they turn it on. Oh, hey, we beat Buffalo. Yeah, they lost to the Patriots the week before. They're 4-2, whenever their teams have been their wins have been versus bad teams. But I still think that that's very motivating after the early skid they've had. And I think that they have serious talent. And I think without Fred Warner, it's going to be very difficult to get Bijan on the ground. So for that reason, I am going to take the Falcons. And also Drake London's looked pretty solid, especially last week. So Lions Bucks Monday at 7 got the Monday night doubleheader. Detroit by 5.5. I think that this is a potential NFC championship matchup. Bucks riddled with injuries, which is brutal. And I think that if that wasn't the case, this line would certainly be closer. And with that being said, I think that the Bucks cover. I'm gonna give them the respect that they totally deserve. They're 5-1, and they've looked very good. Baker has kept them in games. Doesn't matter who's playing receiver. Doesn't matter who their running back is. I mean, just look at his rush on third down. Just extending at the last second, really putting his body on the line to get that first down. I think that the Buccaneers cover the game. I'm going to say that the Lions win. I think that they're pissed off after their loss in Kansas City last week. And I think that the Lions are healthier. I think that they're a more talented team as well. I think that they get the job done at home, and both these teams end up at 5-2. So that'll be interesting as the season progresses, considering we're, I can't believe it, already a third of the way done with the season. So we'll see. Second game in Seattle, Texans Seahawks. I think that this game is very interesting if you like defenses. Texans and Seahawks probably both have top five defenses to 10, 5 to 10 in the whole league. Top tier defenses. Let's go with that. Top tier defenses. Seahawks have been playing well, especially lately. Of course, they lost last second to the Bucks, but even without that, I think beating the Jaguars in Jacksonville is a tougher task than I think most people will make it out to be, and I think they've kind of flown under the radar this season. And I'm guilty of saying that I thought that they were overrated as well. I think that their defense has performed very well. I think Sam Darnold's played very well. Smith and Jigma looks incredible. He's another non-quarterback that could be in the running for MVP this year. I mean, he looks unbelievable, and the Seahawks look dialed, and they're playing good football. And the Texans, of course, started 0-3, winning 2 games in a row, beating the Ravens, and then, of course, winning last week as well. So I think I think that it's certainly a difficult choice to pick because this could very well be a field goal game, could be a low scoring type of game. And do I think that the Jags are better than the Texans? Yes. And the Seahawks beat them by 8 at home. Man, this is tough. This is tough. I'm gonna do it for one last week. I think maybe nah, can't do it. I was gonna say I'm gonna disrespect the Seahawks for one last week, given that the Texans are finally hopefully turning a corner for them. I just think that it's too big of a mismatch. that defense, especially the defensive line for the Seahawks versus the Texans offensive line. I mean, that's not a good matchup. So for that reason, I'm going to take the Seahawks. And that's another one that I was kind of back and forth on. I mean, certainly spreads pretty dialed this week. A lot of these can go either way, of course, as you know. I feel like no matter what, if you play enough, you end up around 500 for the spread. So hopefully this week I can return to 500. Hopefully some of these picks actually pan out. Like I said, especially in the spread department, but we'll see. Thanks for joining. I'll be back next week for the week 7 recap and the week 8 picks. But until then, let's enjoy football while we have it.